So Chapter 19 looks at quality management and control. The last couple chapters we've been looking at finance and accounting topics, and this is a one-off chapter looking at quality management and control. It's becoming more and more important as farmers get larger in size, and they get more multiple business units. And so this is something that we need to think about, because there's going to be different issues, especially if you're looking at livestock and breeding operations. So here's a list of topics we're going to look at in Chapter 19. Typically, this chapter was not in traditional farm management textbooks, and so I don't want to overemphasize the concepts in here, because this is a new chapter and a new textbook, but I think it's important to understand some of the broad topics coming from this chapter. So quality is becoming more and more important. It's really important to define what quality is. Typically, we thought about production agriculture as being just farmers produce commodities, fluid milk, number 2, yellow grade corn, and so forth. But increasingly, it's becoming more and more important, especially in specialty crop production. And here in Minnesota, for example, SunOpta has traditionally bought lots of specialty grains from farmers in Minnesota. These are used for non-GMO production of things, organic production. And so in Minnesota has had a very strong desire to produce differentiated grains, for example, or livestock or milk that's used as ingredients in something else. We're going to talk about production contracts in a different context in a later chapter. So, quality management is to develop a philosophy of improving quality in all operations of the farm. Sometimes quality is linked with safety. Sometimes it's linked with producing a specialty grain based on a contract or a production or marketing contract. But basically, if you're going to get in this type of operation, you really got to make a commitment throughout the whole farming operation. Everything from, for example, making sure you've got the white pull-on rubber boots for anybody that visits the farm to wear, to wearing gowns. There's all kinds of things that you think about that you don't necessarily think about as mattering, but if you're going to develop something on a farm, all of these things link together to provide a consistent image. Quality and control assures that the process and products go as if you want to have them in terms of plan. So if we're going to make a plan for the farming operation to create something, we've got to make sure it's designed correctly. This is a big deal right now, especially in the spring of 2025, with the large number of chickens that we've had to euthanize because of the avian flu. So shell egg production, for example, or eggs that are produced to be converted into liquid eggs, that's a very food safety process, because the Food and Drug Administration has to inspect these and are responsible for maintaining the food safety. And so when you think about flocks of chickens, quality control is a huge, huge issue, especially since they're all confined. 2 words that you often find out in this is process control and process improvement. Process improvement is a set of tools used to understand the current process better. Process control consists of procedures to monitor things to make sure they're in compliance, and then take corrective action if it's not brought into compliance. So what is quality? This is a pretty important term. Quality says you're meeting or exceeding customer requirements. So the customer, for example, in a legal contract might lay out what exactly am I getting for this product, and you're going to meet that or exceed your customer requirements. So it could be a product issue, or it could be a service issue, or it could be a combination of those. The customer who's buying your product is the one defining quality, not you as a farmer. And so if you think about the legal term fitness for use, for example, that often defines what the quality is related to value received by the customer and the customer's satisfaction with that. If you think about ordering something online, for example, oftentimes the vendor that you buy from will say, if you don't like it, ship it back. So there's no different. In agriculture, we're dealing with perishable products. The vendor can't ship it back to you. You can't ship back fresh milk. They've got to dump it. You can't ship back eggs that aren't in good condition. You've got to throw them out. So it's a slightly different process because we're dealing with perishable issues in relation to agriculture. Determinants of quality: design, conformance, the abilities, how does it work? Is it reliable? Does it Can we maintain it? Is it available? What's the after-sales service? That's a huge issue in agriculture because once you buy something, you want to make sure that if something's not working right, you get service. If the software on a robot used in a milking parlor isn't working and the cows can't be milked, typically they try within 3 hours to fix that software issue because the cows can't sit around and not be milked. So there's lots of things that you have to have with the service after delivery. Quality of design. What's the determination before the product is produced? What does it look like? And then how do we transform that? In a production economics lingo, what's the product transformation that happens of taking something on the farm and producing it into a specification that the buyer wants to have? Conformance, how well does the process meet the specification? So how well do we do the process that we're doing that yields a product that's going to meet the specifications of our buyer? So if we're going to grow soybeans on a certain protein percentage, because we're going to use it for livestock feed or for making soybean oil, are we going to get the protein percentage that we require in the contract? The animal weights, typically the carcass weights, do they yield the weight that the buyer wants to have? Do we have the right moisture in our grain? Did we dry the grain accordingly to get the right moisture in our contract? If we're going to label something for organic, do we actually follow the organic specifications, and do we have the data to back up the conformance of producing something as organic? The abilities, again, is it going to work? What's the length of time? What does the manual say? The restoration of the product after failure, what happens on that? We talked a bit about service after delivery. In agriculture, we want things fixed right away. We want to be prompt. And so typically we understand what that means if we had a flat tire on a piece of equipment. But increasingly with software issues and computer issues and so forth, these are things that the average farmer can't fix themselves. And so you have to have a third party to do that, and you want to make sure and get that done in a timely manner. And hopefully you don't have the problem. So you want something built in a way that you don't have these type of problems. Process quality, efficiency, productivity, cost control. How do we continually improve our processes? So if we're going to build a new asset, for example, if we're going to switch the type of building that we use to breed animals in, or switch the technology we use to milk our cows, going from what I grew up with, a stanchion barn, to a herringbone type technology, to some type of use of robots or automation, there's going to be costs associated with those, but how will they make us more productive? Will they reduce our labor requirements? Will they allow us to milk more cows? Will we get more milk out of those cows? Those are all the things that we want to be able to measure so that we can, as we make this adjustment, we know what the cost is in terms of the productivity and quality. The cost of not meeting your customer's requirements is an opportunity cost. So if we can't meet their requirements, they're not going to buy our product. So that's a cost of quality. So cost of quality, things like removing defects by prevention, appraisal, or inspection. Think about making fresh apples, for example. There's a reason why we often use nets to catch apples, because we don't want them to bruise. Picking peaches, we often pick them by hand because we don't want them to bruise. If we use an automated tree shaker, as the peaches come down, typically as they hit the bin, there may be a bruise. Well, a bruise then begins to cause discolorization, and if we're going to take this to a canner, they don't want that type of a discolored peach inside the can. And so those are all things we got to think about as we think about how we want to remove our defects and make sure that the buyer doesn't have any defects. Benefits of quality: if we can do this, we can become a reliable supplier. So if we're able to raise shell eggs or breeding stock or whatever it might be, it enhances our reputation with our supplier, with our vendor. Increases business for us. Maybe we can get some economies of scope or scale by increasing the volume of business. Greater loyalty, fewer problems, fewer complaints.